You want? Okay, you ready?
Yeah. Ready.
3, 2,
2,
1.
1.
Welcome back to another episode of Shit That Goes On in Our Heads. I'm G-Rex, and I'm here with Dirty Skittles and our guest, Jesston. Welcome, Jesston. How are you?
I am excellent. How are you?
We are fantastic.
It looks so sunny where you are.
Well, I'm in the Phoenix area, so this is desert land. Definitely a lot of sun going on out here year round. So, yeah.
Yeah. All I know of Phoenix is it's hot. There's lots of dirt, right?
Sand.
Lots of dirt. Yes. Lots of dirt out here in the desert. Yeah, I've been out here now. This would be year 6 for me out here.
Oh, nice.
Prior to that, I was in San Diego, but originally from the Metro Detroit area. So my family and I, we left Metro Detroit in 2012 for sunny, expensive-ass California, and left California in 2018. And here we are in the desert. Now, this probably won't be the last stop. This is home for now.
Do you have like a place you want to live? Like, oh, I got to make it to this city.
Once I make my millions, I'll probably go back to California, probably San Diego. I love San Diego. It's just so expensive. We got up out of there because my wife got a new job. It just was a no-brainer. It made sense, for us to make the move here. But I'd love to go back to California one day. I would also love to, my ultimate goal, my ultimate dream is to leave the country and maybe go live on the coast of Portugal or something like that. I don't know.
Right?
We'll see.
I call it my lottery dreams. My lottery dreams is that I will move to Italy and have a vineyard. I don't know shit about making wine, but fuck it.
It's fucking right. Just do it. Got money, do what you want, right?
Right. Yeah. San Diego's nice. We did a trip to California many years ago, and we were actually in San Francisco, and we drove from San Francisco to San Diego and stopped at wineries along the way. But I just remember being in San Diego and looking around. We were by the La Jolla Beach or something called.
Yep.
And I remember standing there and looking at my husband and saying I get it. I get why people like California now. It was beautiful. It's gorgeous.
Yes,
yes,
so
indeed.
Expensive. So
expensive.
So.
Yeah. It's crazy. Just crazy.
Wild. Wildly inappropriate is what I call it.
Mm-hmm. That's sunshine tax.
One side.
I think they pay that same tax in Florida. So, it's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Florida's not as beautiful, is it?
No, it is not. The water's a little warmer.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Okay.
Yeah, the Pacific Ocean is cold. No matter what time of year, it is just damn cold. You get in that water and you're like, nope. That's like getting into Lake Michigan or Lake Ontario. People up here, they get in that water and it's 50 and they're frolicking around. I'm like, nope, I'm going to go sit over here in my lawn chair and I'm going to do whatever you want to do. Yeah, you want to get that gross water? Have at it. It's probably lead in there.
Lead?
Right.
Oh my God. It got real serious.
It's radiation, something.
Yes.
Some radioactive fish is going to come out and bite me, because you can't even see the bottom, right? You put your foot in, you're like, I don't know what's down there.
This is why I don't like deep, dark water. If I can't see the bottom or touch the bottom, I'm out. Count me out. I'm not doing it.
Yeah, the ocean is a freaky thing, and it's so much of the ocean that hasn't been explored. It's like the new outer space or something. I don't know, but who knows what lurks at the bottom?
I know. Speaking of scary things, no, I'm just kidding. I was trying to find a transition into so, how do you transition from there? But who are you? Tell our listeners who you are. What does your days look like? Who are you today?
Who am I today? So I'm this young man. Well, not quite young anymore, but so as you know, I live out here in the Phoenix area. I've been out here for about 6 years now. And I too host a podcast called the Hidden Gateway Podcast that I've been doing since December of 2020. December of 2020. Mm-hmm. And I do a lot of different things, right? I'm an author of a published book. That's my memoir right up there. I'm about to publish another book next month. It's an edited book where I have about 9 different authors from around the world that contributed a chapter. And we talk about, the book is about just different crazy things that go on in the world, a little paranormal type stuff. So I love to write, that's dear to my heart. I have a nonprofit as well called Tangelic. I've done a lot of work here in the Phoenix area with the homeless community. And now I have an initiative where I've taken things globally. And, I'm going to be heading to Africa in May to Ghana specifically, and maybe the Ivory Coast as well, where I partnered with a couple of organizations over there, and we're gonna do some renewable energy projects. Bringing solar to homes and different villages and schools, as well as medical centers. I've been on this spiritual journey. I like to tell people my entire life, but in 2020, it made a strong pivot. And I've been through a lot, especially when I was younger, right? I've healed, thank God, from a lot of trauma that I experienced as a young child that really had me in a prison of sorts, an inner prison where I couldn't be myself, my true self. It prevented me from doing a lot of things that I do now, which is my purpose, right? I found my purpose. I stepped into my purpose over the last few years here. So I've been on this amazing journey in life, and I've been so fortunate, so blessed. I have tons of gratitude in my heart for the things that I do with myself in my life now and with my family. And it's been really cool. And, now I'm in a position to talk to cool people like you both. So life is good.
Nice.
He called us cool people.
I mean, write it on the books, print it out, frame it, so I can show my son one day. So what was like the triggering event for you, like later on in life to kind of, or maybe it wasn't later on in life, but what opened you up to be so giving to others?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I guess I'll start here. I'll say that I was raised in the church, right? So I was one of these kids that went to church 3, 4, 5 times a week, right? My mom is to this day a licensed evangelist. And we were raised Pentecostal, Church of God in Christ. So that's very conservative, right? Women aren't even allowed to be pastors in that denomination, and just like straight Bible thumpers. But within that experience, being raised in the church and going to church several days a week, I was taught love, by the church and also my family, right? So, like, for example, my mom, she's 83 years old this year in July, but throughout her career, she always fought for human rights, right? And social impact type work, right? She worked for the Red Cross for many years. She worked in HR specifically for Oakland County in Michigan, and just bringing justice to people, those type of efforts, and for people, I should say. So I was raised to respect and love people regardless of anybody's situation, regardless of their color of skin, just all types of things. I like to say my mom raised me the right way, and my dad too. My situation with my dad is a little different, but I was always taught to have integrity and to do the right thing. Now, I remember when I was in my early 20s, I took a trip to California from Michigan to visit my brother. Now, my brother had substance abuse issues for many years, and he was homeless in California in Skid Row, as a matter of fact, for about 6 years. And so I went to visit him after he went through his recovery and got on his feet. And he said, Jesston, I'm going to go show you where I used to live. And he took me down to Skid Row, and I could not believe it. It blew my mind to see that people live the way those people were living, right? And I was just naive to the fact. I'm like a 22-year-old kid, and he's showing me that people on the streets and living in cardboard boxes, self-made tents. And I was like, damn, bro, you used to live like that? It's like, yeah, man, this was my life for many years. And so that always stuck with me. So then when I returned to Michigan, maybe about 6 to 8 months later, I started doing community work where I hooked up with some orgs and just did volunteer work for homeless organizations, right? But that love, that foundation was built from my years growing up in the church, because I did some stuff in the church for communities as well. So fast forward to San Diego, I did the same thing. And then again, 2020 hit, and I said, unfortunately, there was some death around me in the family from COVID. And that was like a reflection for me to say, wow, I've been caught up in this quote unquote rat race all these years. And it really made me stop to think about what was most important in life, And I said, no, working these jobs, trying to elevate myself in the corporate world was not making me happy, because I wasn't happy. And it just, may sound cliche, it wasn't fulfilling. So I decided to do something different. And then that was my first time I had a vision of Start Tangelic, my nonprofit. And it took me about 1.5 years to really get things going, to get it off the ground. And I did. And, now I'm doing things to help people in need on a regular basis, and I don't want to sound cliche, but it's my purpose. That's just like what I've come here to do. I know that I'm a spirit having a human experience, and I think we all are. We come here for a purpose of in a mission, and thank God I was able to finally find mine. But the first step in that was going through the healing process from my from the traumatic experiences that I had in my youth.
That's literally what I was about to ask was, at what point do you think, and I don't know if you can even nail it down, but at what point do you think you found your purpose?
Wow. So in 2020, I went through a series of things. So I'm sitting at home furloughed from the job. Mm-hmm. And a good friend of mine who I've known for like 20 plus years, he started telling me about meditation, right? And I've heard about it, but never tried meditation. And he told me to try a specific meditation, which is called the Gateway Experience. I'm not sure if either one of you are familiar, but this is a meditation that was developed by a man by the name of Robert Monroe in the 60s. And this meditation, it uses neural beats, which is hemisync, and what that is you listen to it with headphones or earbuds, AirPods. You have one music tone, sound tone going into your left ear, another going into your right ear. And then when they enter your brain, if you will, they create another sound wave. And what that does, that syncs the brain. They put left and right hemisphere of the brain, I should say. And this puts you then in this deep, really deep relaxed mode, which then causes you to have some pretty wild experiences. And I'm talking like out of body experiences. And so I start having these like out of body experiences and, going to the astral realm, if you will, and seeing all these different things. And it was crazy. But during that time, I was still going through this healing process and I felt the need to go skydiving. Now, if you would have asked me a year behind, any time before then, would I go up 20,000 feet in a plane and jump? Hell no, I'm not jumping out of a plane. That's not what I do. That's not what I do. I stay on the ground. Shit, I live in California. I barely even got in the ocean. Like I play it safe, right? I weigh the risk and reward.
You're right.
The play was not where it was at for me. So still I had that urging, that calling, and I finally did it. And after I did it, I realized why I had that urging and calling to do it, because of the trauma I experienced in my life. I had built up so much fear that I had to learn how to deal with fear. So that experience, especially leading up to that jump, taught me how to deal with fear in regards to controlling it and not allowing it to control me. And so that was within itself a spiritual experience for me. And so that helped me learn how to deal with different type of fears that I had. And then, fast forwarding to, that was like right around August of 2020. And fast forward to December 20, I felt this calling again to start a podcast. And of course, here I am. I was controlled by my father in my youth because he was an alcoholic and he physically and psychologically abused me and, made me think that I wasn't shit and less than. And his mantra was a child is to be seen and not heard. And, he's this controlling man. And I never learned how to critically think for myself or set boundaries. And I grew up this introverted kid who was just scared of stuff all the time. Right. And so I'm like, no, I'm not doing a podcast. I don't talk to people like that. No, I keep to myself. I'm chill. I'm quiet. And I just felt the urge and I had to answer that call and I did it. And therefore doing this podcast over the last few years now has been another part of my healing process because I've learned so much about myself and what I'm capable of, but I had to first break down those barriers of fear to even begin doing that. Right. And then I just kept having these additional things like writing a book and I, had the ayahuasca experience and all these other cool things that have assisted with my healing process over the last few years here.
Wow.
Dirty Skittles. Ayahuasca. You and I should go do an ayahuasca experience.
I don't know, man. Maybe. I probably have to do more research on it. I'm kind of a control freak with myself and my emotions. And if I don't feel in control, I freak out. I panic.
Gotta let go. That's the beautiful thing. You gotta let go. And see, I get it because I was somewhat like that too. But once I realized that I had to let go, it was just this sense of liberation, this sense of freedom that I found for myself, which changed my world, my reality. It really did.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense because the most fun I've ever had and like genuine happiness and fun have been the moments that I'm not in control of. Yeah. But it's getting that practice, I suppose. Knowing that I'm safe, even if I'm not in control. That's a hard one for me.
Yeah.
Wait until you're 60 because then you just don't care. You're like, you know what? As long as I don't hurt myself, because, once you hurt yourself, it takes 8 months for it to heal. Those fears, I faced them just by doing our podcast, right? Like I became even more vulnerable and more open than I was in the very beginning. And I think the same goes for you, Dirty Skittles. Like, over the last year, we've both grown tenfold.
Yeah. Yeah, I went from like first talking, and first you think nobody's going to listen. And then when people start listening, I was like, oh, I can't share anything about myself because I like to pick and choose who I'm vulnerable with. But when you record a podcast, you have no idea who's listening. Right. So then I had to get past that hurdle. And now I think like, now I'm just like, fuck it. Like, it's me, it's who I am. And I'm in somewhat of control of what I say. Unless I've been drinking. No, I'm just kidding. So it's really like I'm admiring the work that you do, right? Like, especially with the homeless. Like when we moved here to Atlanta, I remember seeing it more so than I think I ever did in Orlando, for example. And there are certain things that we do on our own too. Like, we always, when we first lived in Atlanta, we would have like little grab bags of just all kinds of stuff. And anytime we were at like a stoplight, I mean, we would just open up the back and hand out these bags. And just because for me, humans are humans. And if somebody needs help, why can't I? If I can afford to help, why wouldn't I? Right. Mm-hmm. So that's always been my philosophy, but I don't have the same upbringing as you. So I'm still very curious in how you became the man you are now, right? Like you've had a rough childhood, but you were able to get past that. And you don't have to answer this if this is too deep, but did it require forgiveness to be able to?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And you can please feel free to ask me anything you want. I am literally an open book. I'll answer anything you want, but it definitely required forgiveness. When I think about my father, the earliest traumatic experiences that I remember was, well, let me say this. I had actually buried this experience in my subconscious mind. And it wasn't until he mentioned it to me that I saw a vision of this happening like clear as day. And he mentioned it to me maybe like 2 years before he died. He died in 2007, but my father had got really sick and he knew he was dying. So he went on this forgiveness journey marathon. He called everybody up that he had done wrong in his life and said, I'm sorry, and asked for forgiveness, etc. And then when he spoke with me, he told me, I remember when you were 2 years old, I came in from work and I ran up to him. He said, Jesston, you ran up to me like, hey, daddy. And he picked me up and then just slammed me down on the ground. Oh, and that always, he never forgot that. And then as soon as he told me that, I saw it. I saw us in that house back in like freaking 1980. And I saw the hallway and I saw him picking me up and throwing me down. So I never forgot that, but it was buried in my subconscious mind. So as early as 2 years old, I remember the first traumatic experience. And then the next one after that, I remember when I was about 4 years old, where he worked afternoons, my mom worked mornings. And my older brother and I, we would stay home by ourselves, probably for about an hour and a half, 2 hours before my mom got home from work. And it was summertime and he told us, don't go outside. We're not home, but we look out the window, we saw our friends playing outside in front of the house. And so he leaves out. As soon as he left, we went outside right in front of the house on the sidewalk, playing with our friends. And then we look down the block and we see his car coming. And we were like, oh, shit. We went back in the house. He had saw us. So we run in the house. And I tell you what, he made us strip down to our trousers, our underwear. And back in the early 80s, there were these belts that were like 4 inches thick with these big belt buckles. That big. Yeah. So he made us strip down there naked. He just starts wailing on us. Again, I'm 4, my brother's like 7 or whatever he was. And he took the belt, he wrapped it around my neck, and he just drugged me through the house for like 10, maybe not 10 minutes, maybe like 5 minutes or something like that. And so I was just really, really messed up. And then I remember when I was in middle school, he told me to take a shower. And I said, okay. Again, mid-afternoons, he said, when you take a shower when I'm home, make sure you've completed that by the time I get home. I said, cool, will do. So I remember he pulled up about 11 o'clock at night and I was looking out the window and my heart just started racing. This is probably one of my first experiences with anxiety. And because I was like, shit, I know I didn't take a shower. I'm outside playing all day. It's summertime. And first thing he does, he comes in, did you shower? I said, no, sir, I didn't. So he grabs me by my shirt, drags me into the bathroom, grabs me by the back of my neck, pushes it into the sink, turns on the hot water and starts running water through my hair and shampoo or whatnot. And then he goes in the kitchen and takes this like oil treatment and boils it on the stove. And it's like this VO5 hot oil treatment. Yeah. Like, I didn't even know black people use that. But I guess he did. But then he like poured this boiling oil all over my head, my scalp. Oh, wow. And then and I couldn't cry during this, right? Because I'm not allowed to cry in front of him. So then he lets me go. I drop to the ground, holding all that emotion in. He's like, "I'll get your ass in the shower." And once I get in the shower, I just let loose. I'm crying. And many other things, right? I experienced all this trauma. But again, as I became a man, like, I'm in my 20s, he got sick, right? He had heart issues and all these things going on. And so I had to take care of him. I literally went to live with him probably for about a year and a half. And he and I had some deep conversations, and he knew he was dying. And he told me, he said, "Jesston, I was way too hard on your brother. I apologize." And I tell you what, when he said that, like, my heart just melted and I started crying. I said, "Thank you, Dad. Thank you." And we embraced. And that was a game changer for me. So that allowed me to forgive him. It really did. And my dad was an interesting character. He had these issues because he was an alcoholic and a lot of things, and due to a lot of things he didn't heal from, because he had a lot of things happen in his life that he just didn't deal with. And therefore, a lot of that energy came out on me and my dad. When I'm saying my mom and my brother. But on the other hand, he was just like the nicest, coolest guy that you would want to meet. Like, people loved him because they didn't see that side of him, but he was very like a gentleman, just really cool, very wise man too. So it's like these two different personalities. And for me, I just never knew which one I was going to get. So he taught me a lot of great things, as far as being a man and respecting myself and respecting others and knowing how to talk and knowing how to carry yourself. And as odd as it may sound, he showed me a lot of love because he always told me he loved me. The behavior may have not, reflected that at times, but he did tell me that. Like, I knew he loved me, but I knew he had a lot of shit that he just dealt with. But when he apologized to me when I was in my early to mid 20s before he passed, like, that was it. That was it for me. Yeah, for sure.
Man.
Wow.
The one question I'm curious of, and I ask it because of my childhood. So I'm curious, did you grow up like after, I don't even know when, but growing up and you're getting older and you're realizing that maybe you're falling in love with other people, did you ever question if you knew what love was because of the mixed signals, or you knew he loved you, but the physical actions didn't necessarily represent verbally? Did you have to learn what love was, or do you think that you had fundamentals still somehow, like whether it be from church or your mom?
That's a good question. I love that question. Thank you so much for asking. And that really makes me think, because thinking back on it, I thought I knew what love was, but and that's because I always thought my dad loved me because he told me he loved me, and he did do some really great things for me, but I truly didn't know how to love. Right. And, I've been married this year, 17 years, May 1st. And it's been quite the journey with my wife and I, right? Because, I've changed a lot through our marriage, right? Early on, she'll tell you, I had like reflections of my father, like, I know I loved her and in love with her, but then I had this mean streak, right? This yelling and maybe even talking down on at sometimes, but I wasn't really aware of it, because that's the type of love I knew, and then and my mom, God bless her, she's not really like a emotional type person, right? Like, I know my mom loves me, but she's not like, "Oh, I love you, son." So it's just not who she is. You know what I'm saying? Which is fine. We're all different. Like, I don't hold that against her. So I kind of had to figure this love thing out, on my own, because I really didn't have the example that I feel I needed to love others in my life, whether it be my siblings or let's just start with myself. I think that's where it starts. I even love myself, and then my siblings, my brothers and sisters, and then maybe different people that I dated over the years. And then here we are with my wife of 17 years now. So, I had to really understand and come to learn what it really means to love somebody, and that involves forgiving people. Okay. Now, which sometimes I had an issue with in the past. A lot of times I had an issue with in the past, because I would say, "Oh, I forgive you," but I really hadn't forgave people. It was just like, I had to learn how to forgive people. Once you forgive somebody, you don't keep bringing the shit up every so often, right? That's something that I would do in the past, like, and thinking about it, like just letting go, But I really had to navigate that love thing over the years. And I thank God that I'm at a place now where I have a better understanding of what love is. And not only has that affected the people around me, but I think most importantly, it's affected myself because I had to learn how to love myself because of the way I was raised by my father with the degrading and you're not good enough. And I never met that level of expectation to him. It was like, I never learned how to love myself to say, hey, Jesston, it's okay. You're doing a damn good job. Just because I've had some experiences in life, like I dropped out of school. I didn't graduate from high school. I did wind up getting my GED when I was 18, the same year I was supposed to graduate. And I became a father at a very young age at 19, and I dealt with a lot of things because of those things with family members that I had family members tell me, oh, your life is over, man. You dropped out of school. You had a kid at a young age. And like, I let that get to me. And so I just felt bad about who I was as a person, and then I had some other things happen as well, because I used to hang out with the wrong crowds in my early teenage years and in early 20s. And I shouldn't be where I am today. I can tell you that. So it's just been by the grace of God and more so me putting in work and working on myself that has allowed me to be in the position that I'm in, and I give God credit, God glory, but, it took me to make certain decisions once I became of a certain age. And that also took me learning how to love myself in order to make change in my life. So,
yeah. I mean, thanks for being vulnerable and sharing all this stuff and answering the deep questions that I like, because I can relate to a lot of what you're saying. And so, there's certain struggles that I think that, and whether our listeners can relate exactly to the story or not, I think just from childhood to like becoming an adult, there's so many lessons that we have to learn for ourselves that you can't read. Nobody's going to be able to teach you. You have to go through those motions yourself. And learning how to love, I can relate to that because we know what we're taught or what we see.
Right.
But that's not always the right kind for everybody, right? Like I think there's many, like there's all these love languages and shit, but I think there's just different ways to love people, and finding out what that means for yourself is huge.
And not just loving other people, but like loving yourself too, right? Because there's a
that's
lot.
Where it starts.
It has to start with self-love and self-care, because if you're not doing either of those, you're no good to anybody else, right? Like, and it took a breakdown for me to finally figure that shit out. Right? Because I wasn't taking care of myself. I took care of everybody else's shit. My shit was like, I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Then you wake up Christmas morning, you're like, fuck it. I can't do this anymore. I'm done.
Yeah.
But, I'm so proud of the man that you became now. And like everything that you're doing with yourself and with your organization, and really just, opening yourself up. I can't find the right word. It'll come to me probably when I'm sleeping tonight and be like, oh, that's the question I wanted to ask.
So how did you find the right tools to get here? Did you seek out therapy? Did you dive more into your relationships? Like what tools got you here?
Well, I tell you, I remember when I lived in California, my wife said something to me that started that part of the journey. She said, you know what? Your father wasn't all that you think he was. And what she meant by that was that he wasn't a good guy like I had in my mind that he was, because all of my life, my mom and other people would say, oh, your father loved you and he was a good guy. Like nobody held him accountable for the things that he did to our family, as crazy as that sounds. And so in my mind, for so long, I just thought, oh, I had this good father. Yeah, he did these things, but let's not even deal with that. Let's not even talk about that. Let's look at these other things, these positive things he did. And so she said that to me, and I said, damn, you know what? You're right. And so that started me just thinking about that, right? And then fast forward to 2020, where when I started doing the meditation, that was like essential, because doing these meditations, that it allowed me to be an observer of my feelings and my emotions, right? It really did. And I started practicing spirituality as well. Now, even though I was raised in the church and these denominations and all that, I'm not a religious dude at all. Like I've broken away from religion, but I am a highly spiritual person. So I then, along with the meditations, I started practicing spirituality. I started working with angels, specifically archangels. When we talk about, burning incense, when we talk about doing crystal work, we talk about saging and smudging, things like that. Doing all these things were my tools, along with my ayahuasca experience too, right? And I've had some magic mushroom experiences too, which have really provided certain downloads in regards to self, But those were the tools I use to kind of be an observer of my life, my emotions, my traumas, my experiences. And once I was aware of these different things, I then had just this inner guidance, this inner navigation tool to kind of work through those things. And then I did have counseling as well with a therapist, because my wife and I, we went to counseling about 2 years ago, or maybe 3 years. Yeah, about 2.5 years ago, because she was dealing with some things, right? But I went with her to support her. But while I was there, we found ourselves talking about things about myself and our marriage and things like that. So yeah, the therapy definitely helped. But the initial step was that meditation. And I recommend meditation to like everybody. It's such a phenomenal tool because it calms the mind. It helps make you an observer, and you can be open and vulnerable when you're in that space. And, then literally, talk about downloads and just receiving information in regards to how to navigate life and different feelings and different emotions. So those have definitely been my tools.
So
it makes sense.
So I do have a question, because I can meditate maybe 3 minutes and then I see a squirrel or something comes in my head. So do you have tips or tricks for how to do meditation without getting in your head? Because I can't seem to get out of my head.
A lot of people say that guided meditations help. So if you're doing a meditation where you hear somebody speaking, there's a voice there just kind of guiding you throughout the meditation, that can help. Breath work is essential too, because meditation can be hard, especially for the first few months. But what I always tell people is try to focus on your breath, right? When you do deep inhales and slow exhales, just focus on that, hearing your breath, and just kind of ride the wave of that inhalation and that exhale. Just ride the wave and just try your best to focus on that. And, when a thought comes, observe it and do your best to just let it pass. Try not to focus on it too much. You're aware of that it's there. Mm-hmm. Just let it come and go, But it takes work. It does. It takes work. So I definitely encourage you to keep at it. I know when I first started, I experienced the same thing, and I just wanted to give up. I can't do this, But there was something in me that kind of pushed me to keep at it, and I'm so glad I did. And it's been literally a game changer, life changer for me.
I feel like this season, that is the theme. Everybody is talking about meditation, but it makes sense because hearing about your childhood and suppressing and not acknowledging your feelings and your emotions, it makes sense that once you could unblock certain parts of your psyche, mm-hmm. and go to meditation and connect those dots, that makes sense. That would heal, I would imagine, right?
Yeah.
You can acknowledge now and be acknowledged that your feelings are valid. And
right. And then you just, you navigate through it and you trust that what your experience is what's best for you in that moment, right? And a lot of those traumas came back during meditation, and I had to deal with them, right? I didn't run from them. And essentially that is what I have been doing my entire life, running from them, not dealing with them. Instead, I wasn't even aware that I was trauma. Even though I experienced that, I didn't know anything about trauma and having to heal from it. But, starting that meditation, I had this awareness, and I had to deal with those things. I had to think through it, like you said. And that's the great thing. And it was all fear-based, right? Because I didn't deal with it. But when you take on fear and you deal with that fear head on and not run from it or try to go around it, it's something special on the other side of that, right? I always say God places the very best things in life on the other side of fear. And that is so true. That has always been our experience. And I just take you back to the skydiving thing, right? Fearful to do that. Oh my God, that week leading up to the jump was like one of the most stressful weeks of my life, but I did it. And it was something so great, so special on the other side of that. I mean, I hit the ground and it was a rough landing too. People laughed at me. Well,
you survived to tell.
But I survived. But the feeling I had after I dusted myself off and stood up, I was like, it's like a weight of the world had been lifted off my shoulders, off my chest. And I felt so good. I had this sense of freedom, this sense of liberation. I used to be scared to drive on bridges. So you know how you're on the highway, the freeway, and you go like on a bridge that kind of takes you to another section of the highway, or even a suspension bridge. I used to hate that shit. Like I'd be driving on the highway, and okay, here comes a bridge. And my hands start getting sweaty and my heart just racing after that jump. Like, where's the next bridge at? Give me the damn bridge. I don't care. I don't just, I can do a bridge now. There's just been other areas in my life that the exact same way that I had these fears of. I mean, I would be, if someone would think this is so small and minute, I could be sitting in a freaking doctor's office waiting on my name to be called to go see the doctor for my annual physical or something. And I'm sitting there and I have to use the bathroom. And I wouldn't get up to go to the bathroom. It was a fear just to get up and go to the bathroom. Well, people looking at me or thinking about me if I, like little shit, that I was a prisoner to that has been lifted, so.
Yeah, but that, I mean, I don't want to say normal, but that makes sense to have those fears based on what you were going through or coming from, I'm curious, have you jumped from any other planes? How many times have you jumped?
That was just one time, but I have to do it again. There will be more.
I was thinking, like, I have not jumped out of a plane, but I do have a fear of heights and bridges and all that stuff. And the closest I can come to relating to that story was a group of friends and I decided we were on this kick. Like, as a group, we're going to do things we've never done. And we were in Florida and there was this huge, like, rope park and, like, we were ziplining. That was the purpose. We're going here to zipline. Which, if you're afraid of heights, dude, that shit's scary because it's fucking all the way up there and you got me on a string and you want me to do what? So the way they started it was actually having you drop, I think it was like 8 feet, was just an 8 feet drop. And I'm like, what the fuck? And I trying to be really cool and like badass. I'm like, I'll be the first one up. I got this. And I was freaking out. But as soon as I did it and I jumped, I was done. Like, I was like, okay, let's go to the highest zip line you have. Like, I'm ready to go because you have that adrenaline. Like, I got this. Yeah.
Right. That's awesome.
So do you think...
What about you, G-Rex? Flying out of planes?
So not flying out of planes, but, my wife took me to Hawaii probably about 15 years ago, and I'm deathly afraid of heights. Deathly. Well, she wants to take a doors off helicopter ride, right?
Oh, wow.
To go up around the Nepali coastline. I'm like, fuck, I don't want to do this. I'm like you, like 2 hours up, coming up to the flight. And I'm like, fuck, no. I'm like, stomach's hurting. We get up there. Of course, they got us all cinched in, right? But she's like hanging out the side of the helicopter and taking pictures. And I am like white knuckling it the entire time. Like my hands hurt. I could see the imprints of my fingernails in my hands. And she's like, that was the fucking coolest thing ever. I'm like, then we went back 2 years later and we did it. And I was okay with that. And now when we travel, I like to take the helicopter rides because not so much the doors off. That still like freaks the fuck out of me. But I like it because you can see so much more of the city, right? Like you can see places that you probably wouldn't get to. I attribute her to having me try all sorts of new things. Like I never ate oysters until I met her. Never ate caviar until I met her. Like all these fears. And I learned how to scuba dive with her, right? Because there you go, getting in the water, and you can't see down, so you get a little freaked out. But as I've gotten older, I'm a little bit more open to doing things like that. My biggest fear is getting hurt because at 60, if you fall, it usually takes like 8 months for it to heal, right? Versus when I was 20, I was like, oh, I fell, I'm fine. I'll go to work. But those are the things that scare me. Those are my fears, right? Some of them are justified, some of them are not. It's just because I'm a giant wuss. But I love the fact that you actually got up in that plane and you jumped. And I think that was probably so freeing. Are there other things you want to jump off of, though? Because I was thinking about when you were saying that, like going over to New Zealand and bungee jumping off that like really tall waterfall. Yeah, no. Nope.
Oh, I would totally do it. Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely do it. Yeah. I haven't really said, okay, but I do not have this, fuck fear thing that I have going on over the last 3 years. I do I get, I do. And that's that. I guess that's part of my drive. It's part of my drive to want to do more.
We need to hang out with him and get to the fuck fear part of our lives.
Yeah. I'm
go ahead.
And I'll just say I'm really extreme with it because of how I was previously, right? I was just really because of the trauma, right? It just had me in this prison. Like I said, I was sitting in a doctor's office, just scared to freaking get up. And so in my mind, I'm not going back to that. I can't, won't happen. And so now I'm just fuck fear. I'll do what I want to do. I'm not going to let this energy control me any longer. I'm going to control it. It tries me all the time still, but I don't give into it, and it's a process, right? Something comes in, that I have to do or have to speak, I may get a little jitter, a little nervous, but the mind is a powerful thing. No, Jesston, you got this. I take myself back to jumping out that plane. I take myself back to sitting with ayahuasca for 3 nights in the desert. I take myself back to different things. And that tells me that, hey, Jesston, you can do anything. If you did these things, you can do this. You can do that. No fear, man. You got this, and that's my mindset.
So looking at your life as a journey now, what has been the hardest lesson you've learned?
Hardest lesson I've learned in this journey. Wow. Phew. That's a great question. What has been the hardest lesson I've learned? When things do get hard, and things definitely get hard from time to time, I've learned not to give up on myself. I always tell myself, brother, you came too far. You've came too far to give up. I think back to dealing with different fears in my life and things that I've had to go through and dealing with people that didn't have my best interests at heart. And I just tell myself, you came too far to give up. And, that is part of my motivation, my drive to keep going. And also to have that balance, right, in regards to wanting to keep pushing and learning and growing in life with the different efforts and projects I have going on, but also spiritually and as a person and in my marriage, and being a father to my kids and a son to a son, father to my sons and daughter, and a brother to my siblings, right? Just having that balance because I get pulled in a lot of directions, right? In my home, for example, again, my mom's 83 years old. She's not in the best of health. So I have to look after her. I have to make sure I'm being the type of husband that my marriage needs for both me and my wife. I have 3 children here at the house. I have to, they need me. So everything is facilitated through me. And then I have my time, but my podcast, my nonprofit. So just trying to balance this life and just this family and just balance everything. It's freaking hard. It really is. And sometimes I'm I don't feel like doing this shit today. And sometimes I don't do that shit on the day. And the hard part has been, that's okay, man. That's okay. If you don't want to do this today, fine. It's okay. So just the balance and again, just learning how to love myself, just staying in that space, knowing who I am and why I am here, has been the biggest challenges for me throughout this journey at this point.
I kind of have a 2-part question. If you, and I know G-Rex is going to be she's asking this fucking question again, but if you could look back on your life and let's say you could time travel and go back to a younger version of yourself, what age would you travel back to and what would you say to yourself?
Wow. I would travel back to when I was 2 years old to when my father picked me up and threw me down. I would go talk to my younger, 2-year-old Jesston, pick him up and say, you know what, it's okay. You're going to go through some more shit over the next several years, but it's okay because what's in store for you in the future makes it all worth it. Yeah. And I find myself doing that now, when shit gets tough. We all have that inner child, right? And sometimes you got to talk to that inner child, just say, hey, buddy, this is your future self, man. It's okay. I'm here. You don't have to fear. You don't have to worry. I got your back.
Right.
Trust me. Yeah.
So on the other side of that coin, if you could ask a future version of yourself, what question would you ask that future version?
What would I ask my future self? I love that question. What would I ask my future self? I'd probably ask them, are you sure all this shit you go through is worth it? Like, is it that damn good? 10, 15, 20 years from now, for you to have to go through everything you went through? And I'm sure that future self would be yes. Or, I guess another thing that comes to mind is, man, like how do you do it? Because I've noticed that as I grow spiritually, personally, and professionally, the shit gets harder. It gets harder. And that's something I think about from time to time. Like, man, I've had so much growth in my life over the last 3 or 4 years, but like things get even harder. It's like the challenges, like you go up a level, like I liken it to a video game, right? Like you start at level 1, level 2 is harder, level 3, level 4, level 5. The shit gets harder, but you grow as a character in the game. Like Mario, right? From Nintendo, he eats the mushrooms, he gets bigger, or some type of character. Level 1, you have a knife. Level 2, you have a gun. Level 3, you have a machine gun. Level 4, you have a freaking rocket launcher. But as you grow, things get harder. You are equipped with more tools, and I guess I would ask myself, man, like, just tell me about the journey. Tell me what to expect. What's the best way that I can deal with these things as these levels continue to get harder and harder as you continue to climb, continue to grow.
I love that. G-Rex, do you want to answer for you? Because I don't think I've asked you that question. What would you ask a future version of yourself?
What are the lottery numbers? No.
Oh my God.
Totally.
G-Rex.
Oh, no, honestly, I would ask, have you been able to let go of your past and move on and be with your present self? Right? Because so much of my life I spent looking backwards and not looking forwards. And then it took Bookie's episode for me to realize that we need to live in the moment and live for today. And but I would still ask myself what the lottery numbers are, because it's still a bucket list thing.
To win the lottery?
Yeah.
Well, keep fucking trying, bud. Keep at it. Don't give up on that dream.
But my last question, and it's a two-parter. What do you do for self-love and self-care today? Like, what is
what do I do?
Yeah.
Self-love and self-care today. I exercise. That works wonders for me, whether it be going outside when it's not 150 here in Phoenix to jog, do some walking, because that's like a form of meditation for me as well. Exercising, that really does it for me. And the exercising, of course, the meditation, and just I always keep it in my mind, or at the forefront of my mind, I should say, that I'm a special guy, and special is subjective, right? But for me, it just means that I've been placed here, put in a position to help others in a way that they will benefit from, And I'm just thankful that my heart is there to want to help others, right? Because that does it for me. So that's my form of self-love, just keeping at the forefront of my mind that there are people that really need help out here, and it's my thing to help them. I don't know. I hope that answers your question, but that really does it for me. I get love in an odd way from that, so.
I love it. I thank you so much for being so vulnerable, and
thank you.
Just really opening up, just not just to us, but to our listeners. And man, I want to hear back from you in a year. I want to see where you're at, what you're doing. You're part of the podcast family now, because now we have a whole bunch of friends we never thought we would have before.
Fucking get invested.
We are so invested now.
Yeah. And G-Rex, I just want to say there's something you said a minute ago that really resonated with me when you said living in the now and not the past, and even not the future. And I'll tell you what, that is just so important, because nothing matters but now.
Yep.
Nothing matters but now. For people that focus on what they went through or past experiences, regardless of what it was, it's a reason for it. It's a reason for everything, and I just encourage people to be their best in the moment. It's so important, yet it is so hard to do at times. But if you push yourself to do that changes your mind, which will then change your behaviors, which then change your reality. And there's a lot of love and a lot of growth in that. So.
Perfect. I feel like that is the perfect fucking way to end it. Like
Perfect.
That was like beautifully said.
Thank you.
Hi, all. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. I'm G-Rex.
And I'm Dirty Skittles.
Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. We'd love to listen to your feedback.
We can't do this without you guys.
It's okay to be not okay. Just make sure you're talking to someone.